October 10, 1780. A British officer in Barbados wrote these chilling words. Not a single tree remained standing. The island looked like it had been burned by fire. He was describing the Great Hurricane of 1780, a storm that killed 22,000 people. But here's the terrifying part. He had no warning it was coming. No satellites, no forecasts, no evacuation orders. The hurricane just appeared and erased entire islands from existence. Imagine standing on a beach right now. The sky darkens and the wind picks up. You have no idea if what's coming will be a mild storm or a Category 5 killer. That was reality for most of human history. And it's why some hurricanes didn't just damage communities. They completely erased them. Welcome to nature's fury. Today, we're counting down the 10 deadliest hurricanes ever recorded. Not by wind speed or economic damage, but by pure death toll. And if you want to see more extreme weather content like this, smash that subscribe button and hit the bell. Let's dive in. Before we start, here's what you need to know about what makes hurricanes deadly. It's not always the wind. In fact, over 90% of hurricane deaths come from water. Storm surge and flooding are the real killers. Add in factors like poverty, poor infrastructure, and lack of warning systems, and you get catastrophic death tolls. With that said, let's begin our countdown. Number 10, Hurricane Fifi, 1974. Number 9, Hurricane Flora, 1963. Death toll, 7,193 to 8,000. Flora did something incredibly cruel. It hit Haiti as a Category 3, moved away, then looped back and hit the same areas again. Imagine surviving a catastrophic hurricane only to have it return days later. The second pass brought torrential rain on already saturated ground. In Haiti's deforested mountains, the result was devastating. Approximately 5,000 people died as entire hillside communities slid into valleys. Then Flora moved to Cuba and stalled for 4 days. Some areas received 100 inches of rain, that's over 8 feet of water from the sky. Eastern Cuba became an inland sea. The death toll in Cuba reached 1,750. People climbed 2 rooftops, then into trees as the water kept rising. They clung there for days waiting for rescue. Flora killed over 7,000 people across the Caribbean. Number 8, Hurricane Jeanne, 2004. Death toll, 3,006. By 2004, we had satellites, computer models, and warning systems. Yet Jeanne still killed over 3,000 people in Haiti. The city of Gonaives became a death trap. When Jeanne's rain fell on deforested mountains, 3 rivers overflowed simultaneously. A wall of water, mud, and debris inundated the city. Water reached 10 feet deep. 80% of Gonaives was underwater. Thousands were trapped in their homes. Many drowned in their sleep. After the water receded, bodies floated through the streets for days. The tragedy here, it was preventable. Forecasts were accurate, but extreme poverty meant most couldn't evacuate. No cars, no money, no shelters. 200,000 people lost their homes. This disaster showed that modern technology means nothing if people lack the resources to act on warnings. Number 7, Hurricane Katrina, 2005. Death toll, 1,833. Katrina is seared into American memory. A Category 3 hurricane that exposed shocking failures at every level. The real catastrophe happened in New Orleans when the levees failed. Not from being overtopped, but from poor design. Water burst through concrete walls. 80% of the city flooded. Families drowned in their attics, trapped with no way to reach the roof. Those on rooftops waited days for rescue. The Superdome became a nightmare shelter. No power, limited food and water, summer heat. What made this shocking was the complete failure of emergency response. The richest nation on earth couldn't rescue its own citizens. The world watched Americans dying on live television. 1,833 people died. Over 1 million were displaced. New Orleans has never fully recovered. The economic cost exceeded $125 billion. Number 6, Hurricane Maria, 2017. Death toll, 2,975 to 4,645. The official death toll was initially listed as only 64. That number was a lie. Studies later confirmed at least 2,975 excess deaths in the 6 months after Maria. Some estimates go as high as 4,645. Maria struck Puerto Rico as a Category 4 with 155-mile-per-hour winds. But what killed thousands was a total infrastructure collapse. The entire island lost power. Not for days, for nearly a year in some areas. Without electricity, hospitals couldn't function. Dialysis patients couldn't get treatment. People on life support died. Water systems failed. Roads were blocked. Communications were down. Most deaths came weeks and months after the storm. Sepsis from infections, heat exhaustion without air conditioning, suicide from trauma and loss. Maria exposed how America treats its territories. The response was devastatingly slow. Today, Puerto Rico's population has dropped by over 100,000. This wasn't just a hurricane disaster. It was a government failure that killed thousands. Number 5, Hurricane Mitch, 1998. Death toll, 11,374. Mitch was an absolute monster. a Category 5 with 180-mile-per-hour winds and a pressure of 905 millibars, one of the most intense Atlantic hurricanes ever recorded. It devastated Honduras and Nicaragua, two of the hemisphere's poorest nations. But wind wasn't the killer. Mitch stalled and dumped 75 inches of rain over 6 feet of water. The deforested mountains triggered biblical flooding and mudslides. The worst single event was the collapse of Casita volcano in Nicaragua. A massive volcanic mudslide roared down at over 50 miles per hour. 4 villages directly in its path were buried completely. 2,000 people died in minutes, erased under a wall of mud. In Honduras, entire mountain villages were swept away. 11,374 people died. Nearly 3 million were affected. The economic damage was $6 billion to 70% of Honduras's entire GDP. Some areas were cut off for months. Villages were never rebuilt. Mitch set Honduras back 20 years. Number 4. The Galveston Hurricane, 1,900. Death toll, 8,000 to 12,000. The deadliest natural disaster in U.S. history happened on a single day, September 8, 1900. More Americans died than in 9/11's, Katrina, and the San Francisco earthquake combined. Galveston was a thriving city built on a barrier island, barely above sea level. Weather forecasting in 1900 was primitive. Residents had no real warning. A 15-foot storm surge swept across the entire island. There was no high ground to escape to. 3,600 buildings were destroyed. Wooden structures disintegrated. Families huddled in buildings that collapsed around them. After the storm, thousands of bodies littered the island. Burial was impossible. Bodies were taken to sea but washed back. Eventually, mass funeral pyres burned for weeks. The exact death toll will never be known. Entire families vanished with no one left to report them missing. Galveston built a massive seawall and raised the city up to 17 feet, but it never recovered its prominence. This was humanity before modern forecasting. Number 3. The Okeechobee Hurricane, 1,928. Death toll, 2,500 to 3,000. The second deadliest U.S. hurricane struck Florida as a Category 4. Coastal areas suffered wind damage. But the real catastrophe happened inland at Lake Okeechobee, the second largest freshwater lake in the U.S. Poor migrant workers, many of them black laborers, lived in communities around the lake. The hurricane pushed the lake's water south. A protective dike failed catastrophically. A wall of water swept over and inundated entire towns. Water reached over 15 feet deep. Most victims drowned in their homes. 1,836 people died around the lake alone. The racial injustice was stark. White victims received proper burials. Black victims were buried in mass graves. This led to the construction of the Herbert Hoover Dike that still protects the area today. The disaster exposed deadly vulnerability and shameful inequality. Number 2. The Great Hurricane of 1780. Death toll, 22,000. The deadliest Atlantic hurricane in recorded history. This Category 5 monster struck during the American Revolutionary War. The Caribbean was crowded with military forces from multiple nations. On Barbados, winds stripped bark from trees and leveled every structure. 4,500 people died on that island alone. The hurricane then struck St. Lucia, Martinique, Dominica, and Puerto Rico. On Martinique, 9,000 died, including over 4,000 French soldiers. Entire fleets were destroyed. British ships sank with over 1,000 sailors. The total death toll exceeded 22,000, possibly as high as 27,500. This wasn't just a natural disaster. It altered the balance of power during the Revolutionary War. What made it so deadly was simple: no warning systems, vulnerable wooden construction, and naval forces caught at sea. Humanity was completely defenseless. Number 1. The Great Bhola Cyclone, 1,970. Death toll, 300,000 to 500,000. The deadliest tropical cyclone in human history. November 12, 1970. A Category 3 equivalent cyclone struck East Pakistan, now Bangladesh. The Ganges Delta is one of Earth's most densely populated and lowest-lying regions. Millions live on islands barely above sea level. The storm surge reached 33 feet. Entire islands were submerged. There was nowhere to go. No high ground, no time to evacuate. The wall of water swept across the delta. Hundreds of thousands drowned in their homes and fields. Bodies were never recovered. Entire communities ceased to exist. Death toll estimates ranged from 300,000 to 500,000. Some suggest even higher. The government's slow response fueled political anger. This disaster contributed to the Bangladesh Liberation War and the creation of Bangladesh as an independent nation. Even today, Bangladesh remains extremely vulnerable despite improved warnings and cyclone shelters. Looking at these 10 deadliest hurricanes, the patterns are clear. Flooding and storm surge kill more than wind. Poverty dramatically increases vulnerability. Lack of warnings means mass casualties. An infrastructure collapse extends death tolls for months. Modern forecasting has saved countless lives. But as climate change intensifies, storms and coastal populations grow, the risk remains. These aren't just numbers. Each one represents a human life, a family destroyed, a community shattered. They remind us that nature's fury is relentless, and our vulnerability continues. If this opened your eyes to the deadliest forces on our planet, subscribe to Nature's Fury right now. Hit that bell icon so you never miss our coverage of extreme weather and natural disasters. Because understanding these events isn't just fascinating, it could save your life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.